I'm Umbreon Libris, and welcome to Tin Tower Talks. So Tin Tower Talks began sort of a year ago with a review in conversation of Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. I had some friends come over to talk about our impressions of the game so that the review wouldn't be just me talking about my impressions, it would be a more overall look at how people felt about it. And I really liked that format, and that's what, it wasn't Tin Tower Talks officially back then, but that's what Tin Tower Talks grew out of. So a year later, here we are again with new Pokemon games to talk about, and a new set of friends to talk about it with me. So I've invited two very long-time supporters of me and my channel, and so I'm very happy to have them here. First, we have Ethan Safran, who you might know as Ethan from Chicago. And we also have bretmwxyz, or however you want to pronounce their channel name. Both of these should be very familiar faces for my stream chats and comment section and so on. So welcome, both of you.
Thank you for having me.
Ethan, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about your background with Pokemon.
I'm a Gen 1er, as they say. I started playing Pokemon as soon as it came to the States. I think it was 98. And I got Pokemon Blue and got Blastoise, and I have not put down the series since. Wait, actually, that's not true. I took a long break. So I took off generations 5, 6, and 7. And then I came back when I saw your videos, Libris, and I was like, I'm missing out on all this good stuff. I should come back to the community. And then my first game coming out of that break was Let's Go Pikachu. And I loved it, and as soon as I could pre-order Sword and Shield, I pre-ordered Sword. And as soon as I could download it, I downloaded it and started playing.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that my videos brought you back. It seems like I'm doing my job properly.
Oh yeah, it was something that I feel like I've missed out on the past generations, but I'm glad I'm back.
Brett, how about you?
Before I start, you do need to go back and play Gen 5. It is the best 2D Pokemon. So that aside, I have been playing, watching, collecting Pokemon since I sort of accidentally stumbled on the first episode being broadcast on British TV. It was like I am significantly younger than the other two hosts, so I was a wee tiny child when the first couple of games came out. So my first proper game was Gen 3. I did play the first two gens, but Gen 3 was my first proper, and I've been just with it ever since. And when they announced that the next games were going to be in my homeland, I was so very excited. And we'll get into my thoughts on the game later, but my job now is mostly editing videos about Pokemon, so you could say that Pokemon is literally my life.
I'm literally a Pokemon, so what a coincidence.
I feel like most people who are watching or listening to this probably already know a decent amount about my background with Pokemon. But for those who are new, I'll do a quick overview. I started playing in Generation 1, and I have not put the series down since. There were kind of ups and downs. There were times when I wasn't maybe as outspoken, as public about my like of Pokemon. But I've played at least 2 games in every generation. It has been a very significant part of my life and of my identity in the past 20 years or so since Generation 1 came out in the West. Yeah, the Sword and Shield. Let's talk about that. Yeah. Let's begin with the positives. Because I feel like this kind of conversation almost always ends up focusing on the negatives. And, that's not necessarily a reflection on the games themselves. Just because we talk a whole bunch about the negatives doesn't mean that that's all there is. So let's start with the positives. Brett, what was your favorite part of Sword and Shield?
Oh, favorite part. See, I think of these games very, very positively. So asking me my favorite part is a very difficult question. I think just overall, the standard of new Pokemon is far higher, and that's like new Pokemon and new regional forms and new regional evolutions. It's so very high. So I think my favorite part is just all of the new Pokemon, because sometimes when a bunch of new Pokemon are added, it's like the majority of them are okay, and there's a few standouts. This one is completely the other way around. I can think of one line of new Pokemon that I'm only meh about, and none that I dislike. So just the standard of new Pokemon through the roof.
Awesome. How about you, Ethan? What's your favorite thing?
My favorite thing is the co-op element in the raids. So not just the raids themselves, but being able to play with people when usually the only multiplayer interactions would be battling each other. You know, one friend wins, one friend loses, and it's not really a good time, or as much of a good time as taking down one big monster on your own. And sometimes it's so unfair that we can just laugh at it, and I like that. It's good fun.
I would say I'm kind of in the same boat as Brett in that my favorite thing, like, it's hard to choose because there's just so much good stuff in these games. But I think that my favorite part is just how they have kind of broken with convention in a lot of ways. There's little ways like making it so that Glaceon and Leafeon can evolve with the Ice Stone and the Leaf Stone, and then also what they did with the fossils, where it's actually like a recombinable Pokemon. And I probably my favorite one of these little things is how they changed the quote unquote Elite Four. The structure of the Champion Cup just feels so much more natural.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, it's not just, oh, you battle three, four, and then plus the champion or strong trainers. Um, you you actually go up against the people who are competing against you.
It actually sounds like a Pokemon League, finally.
Yeah, and it follows a lot the structure that has always been shown since the very beginning in the anime. It's actually kind of surprising that it took them this long to do
Yeah.
to do this approach that has been in the anime since the beginning. But I'm really happy that they finally did it.
And it fits in perfectly with the Galar region. It's just football, right? With in terms of the tournaments and the setting and the chanting. So I think if they were to do this, to remove the Elite Four as a concept and replace it with a tournament, this was the perfect time and place for it. So
Right.
I really like that too.
Yeah, and I've always thought of Pokemon training and battling as a sports analog. So many years ago, I figured out that being a Pokemon trainer is like being a professional athlete. A lot of people want to do that when they're kids. Very few people successfully do that. But yeah, so it's very fitting to have made this switch in the Galar region.
And like the anime has done like the big stadiums for the Pokemon League for ages, and I think like it took them coming to a geographical area with something like football being such a big huge thing that they realized, hey, why don't we do this thing that we have been doing for years, have big chanting crowds and stadiums and everything. Like, now you've pointed out, it baffles me that it took them 8 generations to realize
Yeah.
that the anime did it right for once.
One of the few things that the anime did better than the games. Yeah, but it is also still surprising that they didn't do it before, because there was Unova, for example. Like, it could have been a baseball analog, it could have been a basketball analog, and both of those sports are referenced in the Unova games.
True.
So and like there are stadiums where you go and you battle people. Brett, you talked about the new Pokemon. So let's talk about the new Pokemon, which is probably like the biggest thing that anyone is ever looking forward to in any new game.
Yeah.
Is there anything in particular, any kind of trend that you liked about the Pokemon?
A lot of people complained that they were getting like too cutified. I want to push against that and say they're not leaning into cute, they're leaning into goofy. Like, look at the new fossils, look at like Mr. Rhyme, look at like Greedent. They're all really goofy, I've always loved goofy Pokemon, so they're very, very up my alley. I'll like shamelessly defend like Dracovish for being unabashedly goofy. Um, I just think they're going away from these like ultra violent looking monsters. Like we're not in the early 2000s anymore. Not everything has to be like extreme and cool. It can just be goofy little monsters, and I like that.
I have to disagree.
Well, it's all opinion.
Yeah, well, like the fossils for me are perfect. Like,
Mhm.
yes, they are kind of goofy, but there's like this whole thing around them that to me makes them perfect, even though they are goofy and freaks of nature. Like,
Mhm.
but both of those actually play into the concept really well. But
Yeah.
then there's Pokemon like Greedent, like Stonejourner, like
I know, Greedent is so good.
like
No, you
Ice
agree.
Cube. To me, I don't see them as just going into a goofy direction. Like it feels like they are more cartoony, and like Pokemon have always been cartoon creatures, like obviously, but these Pokemon or a lot of the new Pokemon don't feel like they fit with the existing Pokemon aesthetic or the prevailing Pokemon aesthetic. Like if you look at Ice Cube or Stonejourner, like they fit with, for example, uh, James Turner's infamous, most famous, infamous Pokemon, the Vanillish line. Like they fit together, but looking at the overall Pokemon aesthetic, I feel like they don't. And it's kind of understandable that they've gone more in that direction. That seems very clearly to be James Turner's preference. Uh, and as art director now, um, it makes sense that there would be more Pokemon like that. But personally, um, they just are low tier Pokemon for me. Pokemon designs.
I think like Stonejourner. I quite like Stonejourner. I haven't like encountered one in my game yet, but I've seen like other people's footage. I think it's pretty neat. Um, I think they don't fit currently with the old designs because they're designed in the old way. Like if you look at the original Gen 1 drawings of the Gen 1 Pokemon, they had that goofy charm about them. Like even the Charizard, the Dragonite, and it was only the Fire Red Leaf Green like redraws that established the style of slightly more realistic,
Mm-hmm.
slightly more scary looking. Um, so I think we're going back into that Gen 1 style because this was definitely a generation of reinvention.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
it's definitely a new start. So I think it's establishing like so it's going back to how it was back at the beginning because we're starting anew, we're starting afresh, and I enjoy that.
I think with Stonejourner, I see the concept, and they had an idea to make a Stonehenge Pokemon, and they did it, and you can imagine them all lining up together and becoming, this monument. So even if I don't like the design or think it's cute or goofy or good, I at least respect Game Freak for having a clear concept and following through, because not everyone's always going to like everything. But Ice Cube, on the other hand, I don't know what they were going for. I
Yeah.
Yeah, see, like that's the thing. I enjoy the concept of both of them. And I think I enjoy the concept of most of the Pokemon. But like Stonejourner is literally just a pile of Stonehenge rocks with a face on it. Um, Ice Cube is just a penguin with an ice block over its head. You know, in previous generations, it felt like they were going into more and more detailed concepts. Not just that the designs were more detailed, which they were, but also there were like multiple levels of inspiration. And there was a couple of Pokemon that when I was doing the best designs or the worst designs videos, that in doing my research for them, like that's how I came to really appreciate them. For example, Braixen is one of my favorite Pokemon designs of all time now, because it just has so many different layers of just like, oh, like this little choice was a reference to this little choice was a reference to that kind of thing. And like maybe there's more to it that I just haven't seen in IceCube, Stonejourner, and others, because I haven't done that kind of deep dive into their designs yet. But from what I can tell, they don't have that kind of depth.
I feel like in every gen there is the Pokemon that don't have the depth and the Pokemon that do have the depth. So like Execute is just some seeds. Muck is just a blob that evolved from a slightly smaller blob. And like on the other hand, Cast Form is a Japanese weather ghost charm and also a water molecule and also a cloud. There's a lot of levels to that. I love Cast Form. So in every gen, there's some low concept and some high concept Pokemon. So I think just singling out Stonejourner and IceCube as like why the gen is bad, I think is really unfair. I don't know what's going on with IceCube either. Penguins with IceCube's heads aren't a thing over here. I don't know what they meant by that.
Yeah, that's what I was waiting for. I didn't know if in the real Galar they have that kind of penguin. So okay,
well, at least they're not native to my city, at least.
Okay, well then I definitely give that design a no. Now that I know that.
Yeah.
So it's important.
And I don't mean to single them out. I mean, I think that they're maybe the standout ones, like in the negative sense. There are definitely very good designs in this generation. Toxtricity is up there. Obstagoon is up there. Yeah, I like all the music Pokemon from this generation.
There's a weird amount of music Pokemon in this generation. Like, I get it. Britain has a lot of really good music, but
yeah,
it's just a weird amount.
I was actually really happy getting to the end of the game when you have that band, and they have a name, but I don't remember what it is. But they have that band playing in the stadium. But 3 of those Pokemon were on my team.
I had 2 of them. I didn't have an Obstagoon.
Obstagoon. I love Obstagoon. I love Obstagoon. Yeah. But that was actually the first time that I saw Toxtricity's second form, and I didn't really know what it was. So I was like, it's a Toxtricity, but different?
It's another one.
I just want to come in here to support Wooloo and Yamper for being so cute and perfect. And no, they're not musicians, but and they're not very good in competition, but just in terms of just simplicity and Pokemon charm, it's up there.
I really like Wooloo and Dubwool. I think both of those are really good designs. Yamper I like, and what's it called? Boltund. Yeah, so Yamper and Boltund are both, they're fine. Like, I don't think especially highly of them. I do like how Boltund like spikes up and his tail goes lightning shaped when he's attacking, but to me Boltund was a little bit underwhelming because it looks to me like a middle stage. If you look at the like style of the design of Boltund and compare it to Drizzile, Thwackey, and I forget the middle stage of Reboot. Yeah. So they all have very similar style. So when I saw that, I was like, this could evolve a second time. So I was disappointed that it didn't.
I think I'm one of the few people that actually prefers Boltund to Yamper. Just because I prefer the big dogs to little dogs. I don't like little dogs.
For sure. No, I absolutely agree. Boltund is above Yamper for me.
I feel like they made Boltund look like a middle Evo because it's around the time where you get the middle Evos that you might have Boltund, and because I think this game is very much about swapping out your team, you maybe weren't supposed to keep Boltund to the very end of the game.
Yeah, maybe. But I feel like if you compare it to Electrike and Manectric, which are Pokemon that kind of surprisingly are also in the game.
In the same routes as well.
In the same routes, yeah, it's true.
Leave a comment in the comments if you're also on #Team Yamper, because I think Yamper is just so cute.
But to me, like, Manectric feels like it doesn't look like it's necessarily going to evolve again. It could. I'm sure that people could come up, but yeah, it does have a Mega. But yeah, for me, like, Manectric feels more complete than Boltund does.
I get that.
Libris, can I ask you about something?
Absolutely.
You on your blind playthrough,
Mm-hmm.
you did not know. You figured that Meowth was going to turn into a Persian, and you kept saying, "I wonder what Persian is going to look like." And I was just so excited. I marked down on my calendar when you were going to see Berserker, probably.
Yeah.
Could you go into what that meant to you? Do you think the evolutions are a little too out there, or what? I don't want to put words into your mouth.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy with the Galarian forms in general, and with the Galarian evolutions as well. Like, I feel like they all made good changes to the Pokemon. Uh, Mr. Mime, I think, is still too creepy.
I way prefer Galar and Mr. Mime. I won't go on a tirade about how great Mr. Mime and Mr. Rhyme are, but I do think they're really good.
That, like, to me, that's the one that like didn't necessarily improve, didn't make it worse. I think, except to see like Mr. Rhyme running after you in the snow route, like that was scary.
Mr. Rhyme is one of those Pokemon you were talking about earlier with like so many little references and concepts about it because it's like it's a snowman, it's Charlie Chaplin, it's a tap dancer, it's got a lot going on, and I think it's real. And its face is a Mime Junior face, and that's real. Its sort of belly face is a Mime Junior face. There's a lot going on with Mr. Rhyme. I like
And
Mr. Rhyme.
someone, I think it might have been Mark, Romaniac Files, who pointed out that Chaplin started out as a tap dancer.
He did.
I didn't know about that, but that's, yeah, like in terms of design levels, that was a really good one. And I actually thought that all of the Galarian forms and Galarian evolutions had that kind of depth. Maybe less so for the original stages because the basic stages are also generally more basic designs, more basic concepts. But overall, like they felt like Pokemon. They felt like good evolutions or forms. The fact that there were split evolutions was a huge surprise, and probably the main reason that I'm very, very happy to have done a blind playthrough.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how much weaker that moment would have been in my playthrough if I had known what was coming.
I did watch all the trailers. I had to watch all the trailers because I had to edit videos around them. But I still got that moment, especially with Berserker, and even in the very, very final trailer that was released like 2 days before the game came out, we see Mr. Rhyme. I assumed that was a Galarian Mr. Mime until I saw actual Galarian Mr. Mime, and I still got that holy cow moment. So it was still there, slightly lessened, but it was still there, and I agree with you. The Galar and Split Evos are one of the best things about this game.
Yeah. So, like, yeah, I was expecting it to be a Persian, and then it turned out to be a Berserker. I like Berserker. If there's one thing that I would complain about is that it also, to me, feels like a middle stage.
Is it because it's just physically small?
I think it's because it's just too similar to Meowth. It looks
Yeah.
like it looks almost exactly like Galar and Meowth, but with a helmet. So I was expecting a third stage that would kind of exaggerate those features.
You can't improve on perfection.
Oh my goodness.
Was there a moment, like, was there a specific Pokemon, apart from Berserker, that just genuinely surprised you that it exists? Because, like, for me, when I first saw Galaran Stunfisk,
Oh yeah.
like, people have been asking for like a new form or a new evolution to like Dunsparce for ages, and I feel like Stunfisk was in the same category as Dunsparce, and then fell out of that category because everyone forgot about it. So to see them bring back Stunfisk, and with such a cool design, I was elated by that.
Yeah, that was another one that I was like, oh, is that a Pokeball? I'm gonna go pick it up. And then
Yeah, they got me. First it was the Voltorbs way back when. Now it's the Stunfisk.
Yeah, except like I felt like this was a more appropriate, like a better execution of that kind of mimic concept.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Generation 1 Voltorb, like, sure. Like oh, it looks like a Pokeball, so you go to pick it up, and it turns out to be a Pokemon. So that's surprising if you haven't seen a Voltorb before. Although I think you did see Voltorb before you had that kind of encounter, because Surge or other people in the
Yes.
Electric Gym had Voltorbs. So like that might
That
have
sounds
been,
all right.
yeah, that might have been like lessened. The surprise that, oh, this is actually a Voltorb.
I hear some really, really good gamers who are very smart got tricked by that a lot. Voltorb. It's just a rumor that I've heard.
Was that you?
Yeah, it may have been. Yeah.
For Stunfisk, I hadn't seen Stunfisk at all. I had no idea that any kind of Stunfisk was in this game. And, it was the first time that I was in the mine, so I had no idea that items, could or couldn't be partially buried in the ground. So that's what it looked like. And then it actually, when I step on it, it clamped me.
Yeah.
That was perfect. And like Stunfisk is definitely one of my favorite Pokemon, one of my favorite new designs of this generation. Simply for that experience.
Like I think the first time you get Stunfisked, it can't be beat. It's the best experience I've ever had with a bear trap.
Same here. The first.
Wait, do you have more than one experience with a bear trap?
I lead an interesting life.
Yeah, how about you, Ethan? What was your impression of the Galarian forms, or just the new designs in general?
I was talking on your Discord a few months before Surfetched was announced about how Farfetch'd was being disrespected and how it needed an evolution. So when I saw the pixel art teasing Surfetched, I was like, yes, here it is. I'm slightly disappointed. I wish it were faster. I wish it were more usable, but I'll take it. I'm happy that it exists. So that's my favorite, just because Farfetch'd is one of my favorites, and seeing it finally get some recognition was cool.
Yeah, I think they made really good choices overall of which Pokemon to give forms to. Ponyta is not exactly an unpopular Pokemon, but it was like an obvious choice to make into a rainbow unicorn.
Yeah, and I feel like Ponyta deserved a better design. I'm not a big fan of original Ponyta's design, so it deserved better.
Yeah. But overall, like, yeah, Farfetch'd is kind of a forgotten Pokemon. Um, Stunfisk, also kind of a forgotten Pokemon. Not Meowth, but Meowth seems to, like, its gimmick now seems to be that it gets a new form.
Someone at Game Freak really likes Meowth.
I'm okay with it so far,
Yeah,
because I feel
right on.
like they're all different enough. So
And there's a lot of cats. There is a lot of cats in the world.
there could be also a dog equivalent to that. Maybe we'll get regional Yampers.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Each one evolves into a different kind of dog. Oh, yes. You got the idea in my head now. I love it.
Yeah, one of them will evolve into a Great Dane. Another one will evolve into a
Yes.
poodle.
Evolution methods? Can we talk about that? So I was riding around the wild area with my mask that took 50 damage points, and all of a sudden, as soon as I went under an archway, it evolved. Can you believe that?
It's weird how that happened to you just by chance.
Yes.
Yeah. Did that happen to anyone by chance?
No, it could not have.
No.
Like,
And is there anything in the game that hints towards that?
I can't say I've scanned everything in the game, but people I've spoken to, like Toby hasn't mentioned anything in the game, and obviously he is like him and all of his friends have analyzed that game to death already. They can't find anything in the game that references how your mask evolves. At least like with Surfetched, who also has a really weird evolution method, there is something in there like. Only Surfetched that are really good at only Farfetch'd that are really good at battle can evolve into Surfetched, which vaguely hints it's vague and you still wouldn't figure it out, but it's something. It's something to go off.
Yeah.
But yeah, nobody like your mask evolution method is wild. But then like wild evolution methods have always kind of been in the game, like Feebas's evolution. That's always been weird, but I like the way the new mons evolve, especially like Milcery to Alchemy. Like I saw you do that on stream,
Yeah,
and that like people can and probably have evolved Milcery accidentally.
right.
And like not only could two people evolve their Milceries accidentally, they could then get different looking Alchemies,
Hmm.
and just that to me is a really really good like unusual evolution method.
Yeah, I really liked that one because that definitely seemed like something that could happen by accident. And like when Indigo pointed out that the item description says, like mentions spinning specifically, like
A lot of the Pokedex does as well. It mentions spinning a lot.
yeah, so like if you pay attention, you might figure that out as well. Whereas Farfetch'd is like ones that are really good at battling. What the hell does that mean?
That could just mean by level.
Yeah,
I have a conspiracy theory that people are not buying the guidebook anymore, so they have to come up with these things to get some press for the guidebook, right?
I mean,
You might be onto some of that.
it could be, but like, I don't like it when you need to go outside of the game to figure out something in the game.
I get that, but I feel like where they were coming from, especially with Yamask and Surfetched, is they wanted to build a community vibe with this game. What with the max raid battles and the seeing the other people in the wild area and the big emphasis on co-op. So they wanted you to have to talk to other people to learn how these things evolve. I don't know if that was what they were going for, but
Right. No, and I get that. Even if that wasn't specifically their purpose with these evolution methods, I get that, and I don't mind having to talk to other people. But when the only way to figure this out is to either look at a guidebook or data mine the game, that seems like a bad game design choice.
yeah, I think they went a bit too far with that one specifically. Unless there is something that we're all missing.
Yeah, there could be. But like, yeah, Farfetch'd, I feel like that's too vague, but it is
Yeah.
still something that could happen by accident. If you run it with a scope lens, or
Or the leak that it holds.
does it have, like, is there a leak item, a leak hold item?
Yeah. Like I think it's like 10% of Farfetch'd are caught holding a leak that improves critical hits, and then they can learn Leaf Blade at 25.
Right. Is that the stick?
Yeah, sorry, the stick, not the
Yeah,
leak.
okay. Which
It
I didn't
shouldn't be
get
called
because,
leak.
yeah, no, it is a leak. It's called a stick, but it's a leak. Yeah, and I didn't get that item because it's a sword exclusive, so I couldn't get it. The only Farfetch that I got was the one that Indigo gave me.
Ah,
But yeah, I mean, yeah, if that's something that like you can get him in the wild and they'll have the signature item, like, and it only works for Farfetch, so you're likely to put that on him anyway. So sure, that's something that could happen by accident. 3 critical hits in one battle, something that could happen by accident, and then it evolves, and maybe you talk to people and you figure that out. Yamask is the one that just
yeah, that's too much.
I like to hear what they were thinking, what Game Freak was thinking for that one.
I do really like the design though of Yamask.
Oh yeah.
And of Runigerus.
Runerigus?
Runerigus, yes. I was missing an R. Yeah, Runerigus. I do really like the design. I like the way it moves. I like the way it closes back in on itself.
Yeah, it's a very cool mod.
Very cool. Let's move on and talk about...
Dexit.
Sure, we can talk about that now. Dexit, aka bring back the next national Dex, aka the Dex cut. First of all, how did you feel about the idea of not having every Pokemon in the game before the games came out?
It never bothered me. Like, I never catch all the Pokemon. Completing the Pokedex is not how I enjoy Pokemon. Bringing Pokemon back from previous generations is not how I enjoy Pokemon. So it didn't really affect me in my game, my playthrough. Like when it was first announced, I was like, okay, this doesn't really affect me. So from a purely selfish standpoint, I didn't really care.
Ethan, how about you?
I'm afraid I don't have anything too profound to say, other than I miss feel that Beautiful seal. But no, so that's my favorite Pokemon, and I had a feeling when it was announced that it wouldn't be in there because Walrein is not very interesting or doesn't have a big typing gimmick or anything. So I thought there was a good chance that I'd be missing out on it. So that came to mind, but I've still played the game for 200 hours, so I'm getting by without it.
Yeah, for me, like, same as Brett, the idea of it never bothered me. I understand many of the reasons that they would want to do that, and like even Umbreon, my favorite Pokemon of all time, in this game, it's a dex filler because it's a new game, and I'm here to play with the new Pokemon. So old Pokemon are interesting to give it a kind of environmental field, to fill in certain roles that it doesn't make sense to make a new Pokemon when you already have one that does that already. All good, and obviously, like they're going to include Eevee and Pikachu and probably Meowth also in every game because they are like series mascots. But
there are some clones.
Oh yeah, of course, there are some downsides.
Yeah.
Like Electrike and Yamper.
Yeah, I don't get why Electrike is in there. I'm not really sure. Like some of the choices they made are a bit weird. The inclusion of Pangoro. Like I like Pangoro. Pangoro is a really cool mon. Britain's not famous for its pandas. I don't quite know why that was put in there.
Yeah.
I'm learning so much about the UK.
Like when it was first announced, me and someone, a good friend of mine, person in my Discord server, Ayakara, we both resigned to the fact that our favorite Pokemon were not going to make it, and we were fine with that. And our favorite Pokemon, theirs is Farfetch'd, and mine are Castform and Shedinja. And all three of those got in the game, and Farfetch'd got this VIP treatment. So I think we kind of won Dexit, which has coloured my opinion somewhat. But I understand why people are mad. Some people are really attached to that Infernape they caught in Pokemon Pearl 15 odd years ago, or however long ago those games came out. But that Pokemon's still there in that game. And if you've put it into Pokemon Bank, you can take it back out in Pokemon Sun or Pokemon Moon, or even put it into Pokemon Home. Like that Pokemon's still there, and in the next games there will be other previous gen Pokemon put in that aren't in Sword and Shield. So it's not like you'll never get to use your favorite Pokemon in battle again.
Yeah.
It just won't be in these games because it doesn't make sense for a monkey based on Sun Wukong to be in Britain.
Yeah, for sure. And like I have Pokemon that I've had since Pokemon Ruby that I still, carry forward through every game. I have a shiny Crobat. It's like one of my favorite like individual Pokemon of all times, that shiny Crobat that I caught in Ruby. And that, I've been carrying forward with every generation. And sure, I would have liked to see it in the graphics of Sword and Shield, but the fact that I can't do that does not bother me at all. It'll be in home. It'll probably be compatible with future games. Like maybe I would have used an older Pokemon that isn't a Galar native to Galar at some point in the post game. Like if I was trying to make an online competition team, or if I was trying to do a battle tower team, maybe I would use it then. But it's not an option, so I'll find something else.
Yeah.
But that being said, there are definitely some baffling choices regarding which Pokemon to include. And like their justification, or one of their justifications for reducing the number of Pokemon, was animations and graphical quality.
Are you saying hashtag Game Freak lied?
No.
We're not saying hashtag Game Freak lied.
No, I'm definitely not saying they lied. And I'm also not saying that they are lazy. But like, I feel like they had different priorities, I guess, than what we expected. Or like maybe this is the best that the game could have looked, and if it had all 1,000 different forms, maybe it would have looked worse. That could be it. But, like, why is Seeking in the game?
Why is Seeking in any game?
Seeking was a good Pokemon, like a decent Pokemon Generations 1 and 2. After that, the occasional cameo appearance is fine. But when you're, like, specifically cutting Pokemon from a region, why is Seeking in this game? Why not any other fish Pokemon? I've seen people defend Finneon and Luminion, and like, I don't like those Pokemon, but they've been featured a lot less.
I don't see a lot to defend in Finneon and Luminion. I often forget that they exist, so...
I think the defense is they are not Pokemon from Generation 1 that have been in the games for 23 years. And there's other fish Pokemon. There's, I don't know, Alomomola.
I think they want to forget about Alomomola because they regret making Alomomola not evolve from Love Disc, and they just want to... Everyone can forget about those two. We'll bring them back next gen, and they'll evolve into each other, and everyone will say we're great.
Turns out we just hadn't figured out the right evolution method.
We hadn't made them take the right damage and surfed them over the right spot yet.
Right.
Well, the thing is that Alomomola, in order to make Love Disc babies, it needs to be holding the dusty incense.
No, it had to be caught in a heart-shaped Pokeball, or whatever it's called.
You need to feed it this special Poke Pie that only the Gen 12 region cooks.
Yes.
Did you think that the animations and visual quality of the game were up to whatever standard you want to consider it at?
I think they were good. Like, they were, like, apart from a few attacks, especially, like, one of the ones that sticks out to me is the move No Retreat. No Retreat has a really, really cool attack animation. Well, move animation, because it's not technically an attack. And they're good, especially in the later game where like they're not just like doing the tail whips or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They're good animations, but they're nothing spectacular. They're nothing I didn't go, wow, these animations are amazing.
Right.
But they're fine. They do the job.
How about the like overworld?
I liked the style. Like I'm a big fan of like the style that it went with. It's not like photorealistic. It's not Breath of the Wild level gorgeous, but it's a nice style for what the game, like what the mood of the game, what the themes of the game are. I feel like unless you get really close and start licking the trees, you might see the texture quality is quite low. But
no, actually, it looks just fine from that distance. The licking the tree distance is just fine.
How about you, Ethan? What did you think?
For the most part, I was disappointed. I'll start with the positive, as you said. I liked the evolutions animations for their special moves were excellent.
The like signature move animations.
Right. The finger gun for Inteleon, I think. The kicking for Cinderace. But for me, that's more of a what could have been for the whole game. I mean, I'm not a game developer, so I have no idea how much work went into that one animation. I imagine it was a lot of people. So I don't want to pretend like it would be super easy to do it for all 400 Pokemon. But just as a fan, I was a little disappointed that there wasn't that level of detail didn't happen for every Pokemon.
Yeah. And the overworld?
Starting with the positives, I liked how the more aggressive Pokemon go at you more aggressively. There are Vulpix that get scared of you, which is cute. I felt like Let's Go Pikachu had a prettier overworld. Just I don't really know how to say it too smart, but I think there were brighter colors and kind of a hand-painted kind of look. I missed that. I thought that was very, very Pokemon. And I know it was different because of a different... They were not making a totally new world. They were improving upon a pre-existing world. So I can understand why that would have more detail than this new one. But I missed that.
Yeah, I thought the visual style of Let's Go was really good for Pokemon, like very appropriate for Pokemon. except maybe the overly chibi-fied characters. I mean, it felt fitting because it was a recreation of Gen 1 where all the overworld sprites were extremely chibi-fied. But because of the direction the series had been going in for a few generations of making things more and more proportionate, it did feel a little off. So, but yeah, overall, I thought Let's Go was really good. I thought this one was really good too. But in this one, there were textures that people could complain about, whereas in Let's Go, it felt like there weren't.
I feel like to compare to a different franchise, Let's Go feels a lot like Link's Awakening for the Switch. They've taken a game from long ago and reimagined it, but with a graphic style that reminds you of when you were a child. So everything's bright colors, everything's quite big head, small body. Everything's lovely and friendly and nice, and the sky is a bright blue, and it's a gorgeous game. Both Let's Go and Link's Awakening are gorgeous games. Whereas Sword and Shield, I would compare more to a Wind Waker, where like the setting and the story fit to this graphical style really well. It's not the best, most realistic, most anything style, but it's the most Galar style. I feel like if you rendered Galar out in the Sword and Shield in the Let's Go style, it would look wrong. Just like how Sinnoh lends itself to the sort of slower pace and more downbeat music of Diamond and Pearl, I feel like this graphical style really, really suits the Galar region.
I'm just going to leave this here for the record. I adore the visual style of Wind Waker.
Yeah, me too. Wind Waker is the best Zelda game. This isn't about Zelda, but I just wanted to say that.
But like for me, the visual style was fine overall. What really bothered me was various animations, not just for moves, but there was one moment in particular. I can't remember now. I think it was in the post game, but it might have been in the like major plot scene right before the champion battle. But there is a moment when Zacian or Zamazenta is standing in front of you, and then they turn around, and the animation for how they turn around is horrid.
They just like walk on the spot and rotate the model.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like this is a major moment in your plot, and you don't make a specific like turning around animation.
Well, they really should have just cut to the main character's face and then cut back and just avoided the animation.
Just like hide it.
If you needed to make it in engine, you needed to make it a without the specific models. Cut away from it. It's what every other thing does. Cut away from the things you don't want to show.
And there are a couple other moments like that. That to me was the one that stood out the most because it's like a major plot scene. But there were a couple other times when a Pokemon doesn't quite move naturally or a person doesn't.
A little tiny related thing that got me was when people give you things, they go like they put their hand out, palm down, then you put your hand out, palm up. The hands may not touch, but you still receive the item, despite the fact that they coded in a handshake animation. Like, why not just use that one?
But like, yeah, it is possible for two characters to actually touch hands. Like that one, it doesn't bother me too much because if they're not going to put the item like visible in the overworld being handed over, to me it doesn't need to actually touch. That wouldn't be a priority for me. But there's a couple other like related ones. Wooloo and Dubwool, or maybe it was just Dubwool, has a kicking move animation that it does not use for double kick.
See, also Reboot. Reboot does not use a kicking animation for double kick.
Yeah, and like you have a kicking animation. Why isn't that one playing? And same with sleeping. Tons of Pokemon have a specific sleeping pose or something. Like Toxtricity Sleep's standing up, but with his tongue hanging out, which is fantastic. But when they go to sleep in battle, the only thing that happens is that their eyes close and they slow down.
That's unsettling.
Umbreon has a sleeping animation that it has had since Generation 6, I think. Might have been Generation 7 when they started doing the sleeping thing. But Umbreon has one where it like curls up and goes to sleep, so that you can see in a me or refresh, and I assume also camp, though I haven't played with it enough there. Why doesn't it curl up and go to sleep in battle?
I hadn't thought of that until you mentioned it, and now it bugs me. I don't
This
get it
is a
either.
good question. If anyone from Game Freak is watching this, please let us know in the comments.
Yeah,
I'm interested.
please. It's just like all of these things that you have these animations, you've done the work. You just need to put them in the right places to really show that attention to detail. If the main thing that I like about these games is all the little things that they changed for the better, the main thing that I don't like about these games is all the little things that they didn't do. Like these animations, and like being able to go into the hot springs. Welcome back to Tin Tower Talks. We got interrupted in our recording by Discord downtime, so I guess that was a commercial break. Yeah, so let's move on to talking about the region itself. And I think this is where Brett is going to have the expert opinion.
Yes. I actually just finished recording the audio for a video essay about the region as a whole.
Oh, wonderful.
May be out when this is out, depending on how lazy I'm feeling and when this gets released. I love the world of Galar. I think as far as representing Britain goes, they sort of, it was kind of a mixture of the fairy tale Britain that everyone thinks is reality and then actually how things are. Like there were some weird bits that they nailed. Like everyone pointed out the post boxes and the phone boxes. Like they were all over like Polygon and everything. But I noticed, and this is going to sound really weird, the bins in Galar. The little black like garbage cans outside, the black with the little gold trim, they're all over the UK. That is every single outside bin looks like that, and I don't know why they know that. I don't know why they thought to write that down or take a picture of that.
For some reason, that's really stood out to them in their visit.
Yeah, and like the town names, like I'm sure I've been through Wedgehurst on the train. That sounds like a village that is down the road from me. Like all of the place names are like perfectly like dumb British village names, and just it feels like home. They've nailed the Britishness of it. I love the region. I could go on.
I think they do have an advantage there with James Turner being the art director.
That's true, but like he hasn't lived in Britain for a while. He moved to Tokyo to work for Game Freak. So like I know they did a visit.
Yeah.
But they paid a lot of attention in that visit. Like, hot damn.
Yeah, but I imagine for things like what do the garbage cans look like, I imagine he would have had some sense of, what kind of flavor to give the architecture, the just the little details overall. But
yeah, you're probably right. But I just the accuracy of it, like, it added so much and like baffled me every time I saw something I recognized.
Brett, the wild area, does that resemble actual parts of Britain, or
yeah,
you think it's just kind of like the fantasy world? Or
like obviously they've added a bit more variation, but it's kind of just the Peak District. Obviously, there's no like dusty bowl in the middle of the Peak District, but there is these big, massive lakes and hills and varying elevations and lots of different kinds of ground to traverse. And it is slap bang in the middle of the country. It's not far from where I live. So, like, they've taken some liberties to get some different types of Pokemon in there, but they haven't just made it up completely whole cloth. It does actually exist.
That mix between fantasy and reality, it just seems to be how they approach every region. It's like the fairy tale Britain combined with real Britain. It's like the vacation ideal of Hawaii versus some real elements of Hawaii.
Yeah.
And I think that has been the case since the beginning, because even Kanto was an idealized version of Kanto because it was based on, um, their experiences as children. Was there anything in particular about the design or the layout of the region that stood out to you?
In general, I'm a big fan of just the general layout of the area. I think having the mines at either side of Motorstoke was like having to go through the mine and then go through what seemingly just an identical another mine. That was not great, but the general layout of everything I was a big fan of. Route 10 kind of just came out of nowhere. This big like icy climb that the cities either side of it don't really like. Wyndon doesn't look like it comes out of the back of this icy wasteland.
No,
But
and you spend all of Route 10 going up, 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 and then there's a relatively short drop at the very end of it.
yeah,
You go from this blizzard into, perfectly beautiful weather.
Which is also probably not very accurate.
Greater London, little bit of a wasteland, but definitely not a frosty wasteland.
Like quick transitions in weather were something that bothered me more in the wild area, because you could go from an area that had harsh sunlight and you take 2 steps and suddenly you're in a blizzard.
Not totally inaccurate to the UK. The weather just kind of does its own thing. We don't get as many sandstorms here as the wild area has, but like I do know what you mean though. The weird, like the fact that you can like stand on the edge of 2 segments of the wild area and go, it's sunny and now it's a sandstorm, and now it's sunny and now it's a sandstorm. I didn't really like that. I also really don't like that in the sandstorm you can't see anything. I get that
fog.
That's like
Yeah.
I get that like it's on purpose and it's like it's accurate to be in a sandstorm probably. But it makes life really difficult for me when I'm trying to find where I am. I just get lost. I get lost all the time.
Yeah, especially when you look at the map and the map doesn't accurately pinpoint where you are. It just says you are in this area. So you can't tell which direction you're going in.
I think that's kind of on purpose because it's supposed to be a wild area. It's supposed to be like a national forest kind of place where you're not supposed to know exactly where you are. It does make it difficult from a gameplay perspective, though.
Yeah.
As annoying as it is to have the weather change every 5 seconds, first of all, I thought that there would be kind of an in-joke of Britain having different weather every 5 seconds because we have that.
Oh yeah, it's definitely there.
Yeah. But also, the worst day for me in the wild area was December 1st, when every area was snowy. I love snow, but I was trying to finish my Pokedex at that time, and most of the Pokemon that I needed weren't available. So, from a gameplay point of view, it's really good to have as wide a variety of weather going on at once, even though it's totally unrealistic.
I think like what disappoints me a little bit about the way they did the weather is that I thought that the way Breath of the Wild did weather was so good, where like if you go far enough you might encounter different weather, but also the weather just kind of changes relatively quickly throughout the day, and you have a forecast. So if there's going to be a snowstorm and you want to catch a Pokemon that only appears in the snow, okay, well, like I have to be here in 5 minutes. In the wild area, the weather stays the same for the whole day, I think.
Yes.
So it's like every day it's different, a different combination of weather. It just seems strange. So it's like there is a sandstorm right here for an entire day, and right next to it, there's perfectly beautiful, wonderful, sunny weather for the whole day.
Again, they could have done like a maybe hourly or 2-hourly rolling weather pattern, and given you like today's forecast on your phone or whatever. But I don't know. I think there's something quite nice about not having to rush to like it's gonna like I know it's gonna be snowy all day here, so I know I've got all day to catch my ice types. I kind of like it like that, and like when it's not the first of the month and they don't do the same weather and across the whole wild area. When it is just normal weather patterns, I kind of like the day-long cycles because I'm not a regimented player. So if you said if you told me that between the hours of 5 and 6 it's going to be sunny here, so you can catch this Pokemon here, I wouldn't bother because I would forget. But telling me all day it's going to be sunny here, so you can catch it no matter what time you go there, then I don't feel rushed, and I feel like I can just go there at my own pace. And I feel like going there at your own pace is a big ethos of this game, which is again something I go into in this script that I'm writing. It's very like the game is most of the other Pokemon games. There's something for you to chase, whether it be stopping an evil team or mostly stopping an evil team. Whereas in this, you're not like you're being pushed forward rather than being pulled forward by the chase. You're just being pushed to explore, and I think the slower weather patterns very much encourage that.
Just on a related note to the weather, the day-night cycle during the main playthrough bothered me because it seems to be tied to the plot and to like when you reached certain points.
Yeah.
Except it's like there's nighttime when you arrive in Motostoke the first time. I think it's nighttime. And then you don't get nighttime again until you arrive in Motostoke again the next time.
Night only exists in Motostoke.
But so like you go from Motostoke to Turfield and then to Holbury and then back to Motostoke, and that's like one day.
Well, they had a choice between making it strange because the time is always changing like within minutes, or having it so when you go to sleep and when you wake up, it's still daytime if it follows, real time. Because people are not going to play it as the day-night cycle in the story world. So I thought it was a good decision. And it's also important to have the hotels and stuff to have the adventure feel like a real adventure, I think.
Yeah, like within the story, like because the story has beats where you need to check into a hotel and go to sleep for the night. The hotels, by the way, are all an actual chain of hotels in the UK. They've just changed the logo very slightly. It's the same color, it's the same font. It's just Premier Inn, which is definitely where Game Freak stayed. When the plot dictates you need to go to your hotel room and sleep for the night, it makes sense that they control the day-night cycle within the story. And then once you beat the game, it's like, oh, you're doing your own thing now. We don't control what you do, so time moves as time moves. It did make things difficult when, like, it meant that you could only evolve your Linoon into an Obstagoon between certain badges because it was nighttime.
Or in my case, because I didn't know that Linoon would evolve again until I battled Piers and saw that he had an Obstagoon, and I was like, oh, well, I guess I love that thing. I guess I'm putting Linoon back on my team.
Gotta get one.
And then I didn't have an opportunity to actually evolve my Linoon until just before going into a Rose Tower, like at the end game.
I mean, yeah, there is always the downsides of that. Like, they're having, they're trying to sort of have their cake and eat it. Having the day-night cycle based evolutions and also having the story dictate. I can see the corner they painted themselves into.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how conscious that they were painting themselves into it.
Like, I appreciate that they get to control things like the way the city looks when you first go into it, to give you the proper impression that they want to give, or being able to tie things like going to sleep at the hotel. I appreciate that. It seems weird how few nights there are.
Yeah.
How most of the game ends up being during the day.
Well, they have an early bedtime.
They are only kids.
Yeah.
And like if like most of the nights are spent sleeping in the hotel. Like how many like day night cycles is there in the main story? Are you supposed to like do the entire gym challenge in a week or something?
I think there's a time skip. Okay, so after you fight the battle against, or not against Rose, what's
Leon?
Oleana?
Oleana.
Oh, Oleana, yeah.
Oleana. Yeah, so when the Leon fight is like, oh, that's not going to happen right now. Let's go to the big tower. You fight the big tower. I think there's a time jump when you get back of a day or so where you're not even controlling the character. I might be misremembering, but...
Well, there's definitely a few time jumps at the end. Even right before the champion match. They say that it's been like 3 days or something.
You know, if they wanted to be really realistic, they could have had like a week between gym battles and the tournament. Because in football, you know,
Right.
you have to wait a while. But
Well, when it gets to like World Cup season, there is like a game every day. So like, I suppose the league finals is kind of like, your World Cup or your Euro or whatever. So it makes sense that like one every day.
okay, that's true.
It's still that's still like quite a truncated time for you to beat a gym challenge. Like,
Yeah.
the fact that they even in this game they make a big deal about it being this big huge, like, it's a season, like a football season, yet you kind of do it in maybe a week and a half.
And that is getting a little bit into the story. So just to finish off with like region related things, I wanted to talk about the way that the like routes and regions or the region as a whole is structured, because I really like the way it looks on the map, in that at the beginning it's a fairly straight, you know, you go here, go here, go here. There's a little bit of back and forth in the beginning, which is nice because that's how it's always been at the very beginning of the game. You go to the next city and you have to come back. But then you get to Motostoke, and it looks, if you're just looking at the map, it looks like you have two options of where to go. You get to Hammerlock, and it looks like you have multiple options of where to go as well. Except you're not allowed to actually do that, because there is some artificial roadblock. And it's like, oh, my Corviknight is tired, or there's some Team Yell people that are making a ruckus over here, and so you're not allowed to go that way. And like, it really bothered me that they had this region that seems to allow for choice. So, you know, you get to Motostoke. Do you want to go first to the grass gym, or first to the water gym, and then you come back and do the fire gym? Or do you want to go first to ghost / fighting and fairy, or do you want to go to dark and ice / rock, right? But you're not actually given the choice. And it just, the kinds of roadblocks that they use just really annoy me.
Did you get annoyed by Snorlax in the first games?
Nowadays, I do get a bit annoyed about Snorlax because you can battle sleeping Pokemon. So like, why don't I just engage in battle with the Snorlax and have to either wear him down or just try to catch him? So nowadays that does bother me. But things like strength boulders or cut trees didn't bother me, because just, there is a tree in the way. I literally can't get past this unless I can cut down the tree, or unless I can push the boulder out of the way, and eventually I'm going to get the ability to do those things. It's not, there is a tired Corviknight here, and eventually I'm going to get the ability to make him untired. Eventually he's not tired anymore.
The artificial blockades that aren't Team Yell are really dumb. Especially when you consider that Team Yell's one purpose is to literally be a blockade for other trainers that aren't Marnie. So the fact that they made this team and then just made, like, I didn't even come across the Sleepy Corviknight. So because I just go the way I'm told, like a good Pokemon trainer. But like, the fact that they came up with these artificial barriers when they didn't have to, because they could have just done a big crowd of Team Yell vuvuzellaing in somebody's face as a blockade. They had that pre-built for them. Why Game Freak with your Corviknight?
Yeah, but even Team Yell, I don't really like, because it's always just one or two people. And there are situations where you encounter one or two people from Team Yell, and you battle them, and then you get past them. So why are there situations where you encounter them and you're not allowed to battle them? It would have been different if, for example, you go up to a pair of Team Yell people, and they have very high level Pokemon, so you can't get past them because you can't beat them. So like, eventually you work towards that, and then you can.
I like that, because that's the wild area has that.
With Team Yell being like purposefully antagonistic, what would have been interesting is just having them just refuse to battle you. Not because they're stronger than you, not because you can't beat them, just because they're like, nah, mate, I ain't battling you. I'm here to stand there and be in the way. Which would have been way more like punk rock, which is what they're supposed to be. Had they just gone, nah, I'm in the way. I'm not moving. I'm not battling you. I'm just in the way. So I don't think like even like not. I like Team Yell. Can we segue into Team Yell? Because I really like Team Yell. I thought they were just a bit of a joke, like kind of like how Team Skull was a bit of a joke. And then when I got into Spikemuth, I started just really, really sympathizing with them. And I love Piers. Piers is such a great gym leader. I really like what they're trying to do and how they're trying to like make their terrible Midland British city slightly less terrible. Those kind of cities definitely exist in the real Britain. It's this one. Like that place, those places genuinely do exist, and they're like they've been forgotten about, so they get no money to improve on the city. So Team Yell has made this plan to make a celebrity in Spikemuth so that the city is less forgotten about. It's a really nice, sweet idea, and I love what Team Yell, like they started as an absolute joke, but like what they ended up as, I really, really like. How do you guys feel about the team?
Exactly what you said. Well, what Brett said is what I was thinking. I liked how it was a very realistic situation. There are misguided sports fans and all around the world, and that was fun to see. I'm going back to the sports thing over and over again, but now that we're talking about it, I'm realizing how central it was, even when you were not on the court or field or whatever. So I thought I'm realizing that it's a really good job by Game Freak there. Libris, during your playthrough, you saw them and you said, "Oh, this must be the evil team," and that was frustrating. They're not evil; they're just punk.
They are punk. They are misguided punks.
No, absolutely. And I think I said that the first time that I encountered them, because that they have that look. They have that Team Skull look. So they do serve as antagonists for a decent portion of the game. But no, they absolutely are not an evil team. Actually, there is no evil team, really, in Galar.
There's Macrocosmos.
Yeah.
Macrocosmos is weird.
I couldn't take Macrocosmos seriously, mostly because that's the name of a Yu-Gi-Oh card that I used to use a lot. So whenever the name came up, I was like, oh, we're playing Yu-Gi-Oh now. Cool. I'm better at this game.
Macrocosmos to me was weird in the same way that the Ether Foundation was weird. Because with the Ether Foundation, they are essentially a nonprofit organization kind of thing, trying to do good. Until Lusamine goes crazy, and then they blindly defend her. Like they become evil, so to speak, because she changed her objectives, and that just seems weird to me because no one seems to question why it changed, why they are doing that, why they're still defending it. And it's the same case with Macrocosmos. Like they are just working for different parts of this company, different subsidiaries and stuff, and all of a sudden they are just like blindly defending this guy who is clearly making very bad decisions.
Well, because there's money in it. I think it's a good take on hashtag capitalism, because that's how it works. And there's even people in the Poke centers talking about how much they love Chairman Rose or Macrocosmos, and it reminds me of how sometimes businesses that we use on a daily basis may not be good for us in the long run.
No, that is absolutely true. I like that Macrocosmos, a company, is essentially the main antagonist in the end, or not necessarily the company, but a billionaire who
chairman,
controls
yeah.
everything.
He's like, it's Macrocosmos is, I think, comparable to say like Virgin, because like they are every company. Like there's like Virgin is, I want to say Richard Branson.
Yes.
And they do, and like Macrocosmos has like entertainment and mining and energy and flight. One of the stops on the battle tower is like Macrocosmos Air, which is just Virgin
Air.
Atlantic, Virgin Air, whatever. So like, and I'm glad Ethan said it before I did, because I run a politics channel now, and one of the main enemies of this game is mega corporations and capitalism, and I'm big on board for that.
No, absolutely. Me too.
And we all three of us are business owners, so we're not anti. You know, we're pro. We're anti-evil corporations, but we like the good.
We're pro
the good
business.
businesses
We're
are
not
good.
pro.
The good businesses are good.
Yeah, we're not oligarchs.
But yeah, like having Macrocosmos be like, once you've played through the game once, you notice it everywhere. You notice just how prevalent Macrocosmos is, and I don't think like the goon level workers are knowingly defending what Chairman Rose is doing. They're just doing their jobs. They're just doing what they've been told to do by the people who are just doing what they've been told to do by the people.
Right.
So
maybe I'd have to review the dialogue with the people that you battle going up the tower. But I feel like at least one person in there says something along the lines of whatever the chairman says is good, kind of thing. And I'm sure there are people that are actually like that in the world, that just actually blindly follow their leaders. But it's just the fact that the goons, the grunts that you're battling, are just people that happen to work for his companies, and that none of them say anything like negative.
Well, like if we're trying to approach this from a realistic standpoint, the company will have internal PR. The company will have spun whatever Chairman Rose is doing. The Chairman Rose will have a guy whose job it is to convince his employees that what he's doing is the best thing. So they will defend him because they've been told that it's great, that what he's doing is great. And they don't want to get fired and not be able to afford curry ingredients for their Pokemon.
Right.
Yeah, that's fair.
But then they would be able to work at a place with more sensible elevators at their building, because their elevators are only for battling Pokemon.
Yeah, but let's pull back a little bit, because we're talking about like very like end game kind of things. So let's talk about the story from the beginning.
I like how Leon the champion is at the home village, because it creates a character that can be, you see how he's just, Lee, right? They call him Lee, to his family. But then as soon as you leave there, he is the biggest star. And we're able to, he's our friend. We feel like we're an insider in the world, even though we grew up in a small town. I like that.
Yeah, I quite like that as well. They make an effort to try and make the champion Leon a fully fledged character. They fail because he has two character traits, and one of them is that he likes Charizard. So, like, they make a real go at making you like Leon and making Leon a fully fledged character, but they fail because they forget to make a character. But I still like Leon.
I think liking Charizard is a very, very good character trait.
Being strong and liking Charizard does not make you a fully fledged character. I did like Leon though. I like all the interactions between like the core four characters with you, Hop, Leon, and Sonia. There's a lot to explore between those characters. There's a lot we didn't see, and I quite like when a world throws you into the middle of like pre-established characters and doesn't, establish every single important thing has happened in this weekend before the game starts. It feels like the world is more alive when we have we know there's a relationship between Leon and Sonia that is not perfect, but we don't really get details about it because they're not pertinent to the story. and I really like how that sort of slow build was set up. And like I said before, it's a nice relaxed pace because you're not chasing down the evil team that's about to destroy the multiverse or whatever.
That's my favorite thing about the story in this game. I like Pokemon games with small story. It's part of the reason I like Generations 1 and 2 so much. Yeah, you beat Team Rocket, but you kind of do it just by accident, just because you happen to be there.
Mm.
You're not actively going after Team Rocket. Except in Gen 2, there's the one time when you hear their radio broadcast. And then you know, okay, like, this is the time to intervene. But besides that, you're just going around, you're just doing your gym challenge, and it just so happens that some rockets are in the way, so you beat them up because you need to get through. And so I really appreciated in this game how Leon and Sonia are the ones who worry about the big problems, so that you can just worry about your gym challenge.
And it makes so much more sense that way. When giant Pokemon are raiding through the region, who is most equipped to stop it? The most powerful trainer in the entire region, or a 10-year-old, 10, 12-year-old kid that doesn't even have 6 gym badges yet? Yeah. Like, it makes a lot more sense for them to go.
Why didn't they send Steven to stop Groudon/Kyogre?
Yeah.
The problem that ended up causing in Sword and Shield is that once you get to that major climax, it hasn't really been built up properly, and there's no mention of Eternatus throughout the entire game until you get to Rose being like, "You want to stop the darkest day?" No, it's happened. It was this Pokemon that I released, and it destroyed everything here.
That's why I very respectfully disagree on the adults handling it thing. If I'm paying $60 for the game, I want to go into the multiverse hell, and I want to take on Eternatus with my bare hands, because that's what I'm paying for.
I understand that, and the Eternatus fight is, I think, one of the the game is not at its best during that Eternatus fight, because I feel like that is the point. That is the pinnacle of the game happening around you. That, the Eternatus versus you, Hop, Zacian, and Zamazenta, you could not do anything in that fight, and you would still win because of Zacian and Zamazenta. But it's a really cool looking fight, though.
I thought it was a very satisfying fight, actually, because it felt difficult, and more importantly, it felt like the legendary Pokemon were actually necessary.
Yeah.
Whereas there's other situations where you catch a legendary Pokemon, like in Generation 5, for example, you have to catch Zekrom or Reshiram, and then afterwards you face N, who has the other one. But you don't have to bring them into the battle, and you can still win. So in this case, the legendary Pokemon were actually important. They were necessary to winning that battle. It's absolutely impossible to win that battle without them.
I feel that, and I like that aspect of it, but I feel like they contributed just a little bit too much to that battle. Between them, they took down more than half of Eternamax Eternatus's health bar. And Hop was there with a double doing absolutely nothing.
In my game, double was very big. I think it got a few critical hits, but yeah.
For real though, why did Hop keep that double?
Well, that I thought that was one of my favorite parts of the game. The relationship between Hop and Wooloo/Dubwool. Remember, he puts Wooloo on the bench after losing to you a few times.
Right.
In the middle of the game. So I think that's about him starting to accept that he's not very good at a trainer.
Can we talk about Hop? Hop is the first time I've ever felt bad for beating my rival.
Yeah.
There were at least 3 battles with Hop where I'm like, mate, I don't want to win right now. You need this more than I do. if this was a movie, I would lose to Hop in the semifinals, and he would go on to beat his brother. And I would take that. And no, but it's a game, so I have to. If I lose, I have to give him half my money and then just go beat him again. Hop was really well written in this game, right?
Hop is probably the best written rival we've ever had. Possibly the best written character Pokemon has ever had.
Maybe.
Whoa! Hottest hot take of this whole podcast. Oh my goodness!
I saw so many people on Twitter saying like Hop is the worst rival, and I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Do you remember Trace? Do you remember Tierno and Trevor and all of the... No, you don't, because they were worse, because you forgot them. They were terrible. Hop is...
I liked Hop.
Hop is great.
Hop's details, like patting his cheeks like his brother does before battle. I don't know if you noticed that. Things like that. I mean, not just as written, not just in the sense of his dialogue, but just in those small details.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with your hot take, Libris.
Oh yeah, me too.
So you need to make this a thumbnail, all caps. Is Hop the best
is
Pokemon?
The best.
Yeah.
It really annoyed me when Hop kept pointing out when I had type advantage over him. And then I realized why. Because Leon does it. Because Leon taught Hop how to battle, so Leon did it to Hop. So Hop was like, okay, the champion does it, so I have to do it too, because I want to be the champion. And it just...
Yeah, that's great.
It's perfect.
And he's just so, he just wants to be like his brother. He just idolizes him. He doesn't just pat his cheeks. He actually throws the Pokeball in exactly the same motion.
He's practicing in the hotel lobby how to throw his Pokeball properly.
Yeah.
And then the resolution right at the very end, after the post-game, big spoilers, after the post-game when he realizes, I don't have to be the champion. I don't have to live the life that Leon led. I am going to be the best Hop, not the best Leon. And he decides he wants to be a professor.
That's why I didn't feel bad whooping his butt. I was like, no, it's
helping him on his journey.
Yeah, you have to make your own. You have to be your own. Does he have a last name?
No.
How many people in Pokemon have a last name?
He has to be his own. His own whatever his family name is, because Leon is already the trainer in the family, and it's time to be your own little Hop. That's what I thought when I was sweeping him with Mudsdale.
It's really nice to have a rival who is a little bit ahead of you at the beginning because he already has a Pokemon, and then he falls behind, and then he doubts himself, and then he overcomes that, and he actually makes it to the Champion Cup semifinals. And sure, he loses there, but he at that point he accepts that. He doesn't beat himself over for that.
Very impressive. His arc is great. He may I agree with you. Now that we've said it out loud, he may be the best written character in Pokemon. I think he is.
You know what's disappointing though is if you go back at where we are collectively right now in the game, after the post game, after everything. I wish we could see what he's doing in the lab, but he's just staring off into nowhere. I would, first of all, for sequel purposes, it would be cool if Hop, accidentally summons Eternatus 2.0 and we have to help him out. But I also want to check in on him because he's a cool guy. So
he's a cool guy. I
recommend you check that out if you haven't. Go to the lab.
Yeah, absolutely.
And experience that.
But he's at the lab and you don't see him doing anything really, but he's there to learn, Yeah. He's working hard, being the assistant, and if there is a sequel, it would be really cool to see Sonia as a fully realized 100% the professor, and Hop either there as her assistant, or maybe he's started off his own lab somewhere else. There's a secondary lab.
Well, she's already written a book, so she is already as legitimate of a professor as possible. So, not to contradict with you,
and thank you for bringing that up, because she's like doing nothing with her life, right? Magnolia complains that she is doing nothing with her life at the beginning of the game. So presumably she hasn't written that book yet. And then at the end of the main story, she has written a book, she's published it, and like so like it's out. If the whole thing were to take place in that kind of time span, it would make sense considering all the gyms you have to go through, Champion Cup, all that kind of stuff. It would make sense. But because of the way that they restrict how many days seem to pass, it feels like the entire story took place over like a week, including that 3-day break at the end.
Yeah.
And that is 100% not enough time to write a book and publish it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the expert on publishing books in this room, but I'm pretty sure it takes more than a week. Although, like, her nan complaining that she's doing nothing with her life, that could just mean that Professor Magnolia does not understand what Magnolia is doing with her life. Because I have to explain that I'm not doing nothing with my life because my mum doesn't understand my job. So I get where she's coming from. Like, if maybe she has been researching this, like, on the side for a while.
She's been watching YouTube videos on Dynamaxing.
Well, like, she's like...
So she's basically a doctor.
Well, the book she wrote is on, like, the history of Galar, right?
Yes.
It lives in your bag. It's a key item. You can't read it. Which I thought would have been a really cool feature, giving me the chance to read the book.
More reading books in Pokemon, please.
But like, she could have been like working on that as a side project, like away from her nan, because she was like a lab assistant. She could have been just sort of working on this in her free time, and then have finally been kicked out of the house by Magnolia, giving her the chance to like get the concrete parts of it and finish it off. It's still way too short a time span to publish a book, let alone write a book. And I'm sure you two could attest to that. But no, I have no defense for that.
So in other words, you're saying Squidward and Squilliam, who are commenting on her book writing, but you're with the evil sword and shield hair people. And you agree?
I hope to never be with them.
Because I think they, quote unquote, lampshade it. They say basically, how in the world did you write a book in 5 minutes? But it's a plot device, I think, because it's about, what are their names? What's Squidward? Swordward?
Swordward and Shieldward.
Swordward and Shieldward are claiming that they are, they deserve the throne or whatever. So you need an expert on Galarian history. That's what I saw it as.
Oh yeah, it's definitely just a plot device. And can we talk about how, just for a second, we talked about how Hop was the best written character in the Pokemon series, and then juxtaposed with the worst 2 named characters in the history of Pokemon with Swordward and Shieldbird.
Well, like, I kind of appreciate the names because they are so silly, and they look very silly too.
I will give them Swordward. Swordward is an appropriately silly portmanteau of Sword and Edward. But what is Shieldbert? That they didn't even try with that one.
Well, from Dilbert, it was a nice crossover.
Oh, no, that's not from
No,
Dilbert.
not really.
Famous British comic Dilbert.
Yeah.
The names actually didn't bother me too much. The character designs did a bit, and not just because they have ridiculous hair, because the hair is ridiculous, but I'm actually okay with that. It's the fact that they are, other than the hair, they have completely unremarkable character designs. They both look exactly the same, except they are wearing different colors.
That's a comment on Sword and Shield being the same exact game, but with different covers. I really think that. But
even though I enjoyed the content, like the battles of the post game and interacting with them and the other characters, that frame, the like plot of the post game was very weak.
Yes,
I liked how appropriately dumb it was. It was dumb. It was very dumb. But I feel like they were that sort of goofy pantomime villain that has a terrible plan. and I feel like it was self-awarely bad. The phrase, like their whole thing.
Right.
I'm gonna give them the credit and say that it was they were aware of how bad their plan
they
was.
do talk about, oh, we are celebrities, and therefore, so like yeah, it definitely felt a little bit over the top on purpose.
Yeah.
But
Something about the hair made me think it may not be a serious characters. I wonder if we had the cover legendaries with us during the battle against Eternatus. I think that would have made the battle against Eternatus much better, because then we would feel like we were controlling the battle, right, instead of having them be separate entities.
oh, like
And
actually
it also
having
feels
them
kind of weird.
on your team,
Right, having captured them.
capture them. Yeah.
I think maybe not having captured them, or maybe like have it be like as if it was a double battle.
Right.
So like Zacian had, because I was playing Sword, Zacian just temporarily joined my team, took my battle commands, but then I didn't capture it because I really liked the fact that you play through the entire main game and you don't catch the box legendary. Because I got kind of tired of the box legendary being that obligatory before the 8th GM capture.
Yeah.
So I like that they didn't do that in this one.
Well, I'm realizing now that it's just about preference, because I missed that. I wish the real game. Sorry, not to call the post game fake game, but I wish the actual game had a battle against Zacian and Zamazenta as part of it. I don't like how it was kind of a post credits extra when it's like if you go to a movie and the poster characters are in the post credits.
I feel like it harkens back to like Gen 2 when you had to like you almost had to accidentally stumble upon Lugia and Ho-Oh in Gold and Silver. Less so in Crystal when Suicune was like rammed in your face for the entire campaign. But you had to like go and properly explore to find like the Whirl Islands with Lugia. Unless I'm vastly misremembering.
No, you're absolutely right, and it's one of my favorite things about Generation 1, Generation 2 as well, that the legendaries aren't a forced encounter.
Yeah,
You
and
have to go
Gen
looking
1,
for
you
them.
have to go out and earn Mewtwo after the Elite Four. Like this one, I suppose Eternatus is the closest thing to Mewtwo, like character-wise, because it's the big, evil, powerful Pokemon. But having to like beat the Elite Four to sort of earn your right to get the big legendary, I quite enjoyed that. And again, having to sort of make your own way there. I didn't stumble across the post game for a while because I went into the Slumbering Weald and then got distracted because it's me. And I paused the game to go out and do whatever was distracting me. And as I came back in, you know how it gives you weather updates on the pause screen?
Yeah.
Well, the weather update it gave me was there is some heavy fog in the wild area. And I interpreted that to mean that means Zacian's there. Because fog, that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So I then spent an hour circling the wild area. And then Zach came in and was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, I'm looking for Zacian. He's like, no, he's in the Slumbering Weald. You have to go there. You know, that bit where he lives, you have to go there.
That's what I liked about Latios and Latius, that they were wild encounters. So I hope that's something that comes back in future games. So I don't blame you. I think that was wishful thinking, but it would have been better.
I was sure we were going to get roaming legendaries in the wild area. I was 100% sure that was going to happen. Because like you could do it the exact same way. Like when you cross over into a different area, they cross over into a different area. Instead of being throughout the whole region, it would just be throughout the wild area. That's like made for a roaming legendary, right?
Speaking of wild area and that kind of feature, let's say that Sword and Shield get a third version or like improved version, whatever that is, whether that's like a Pokemon Crystal type of thing or a alternate version like Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. What kinds of features that they introduced into this generation would you want them to keep or improve on or disregard or maybe add something completely new? What kinds of features like would you like to see different?
I would like to explore the minor league gyms a little bit more. because they're mentioned.
Yeah.
They are mentioned, and I would like maybe some pre-game where you are like working in the minor league gyms a little bit. Whereas like we know they're a thing, they're mentioned a lot, and there's clearly some like I'm not sure. It might have been your video on it or somebody else's video on it. Like the implication is that the gym structure is very variable. So I would like to see in the next game maybe a different order of gyms to battle, maybe a couple of different leaders. But I would like to see some more exploration of the minor leagues. And yeah, roaming legendaries in the wild area. Those are the first two that spring to mind.
I'd like a marker that you could set on the wild area that, because sometimes I get lost in the fog. Maybe it's just maybe I'm like Leon and have a terrible sense of direction. But in some kind of open world games, you can say, okay, have a shining light at this area, a beam of light. Do you get what I'm saying?
A beacon.
I don't know that's super.
Yeah. Like Breath of the Wild.
A beacon, that's the word. Okay, that's what I was getting at. Yeah, I don't want to bring that up because I feel bad for Game Freak because everybody's comparing this to Breath of the Wild, and that's just so unfair because there are different kinds of. So that's what I would add. I would also kind of switch Dynamax around so it's just Mega Evolutions, but called Dynamax, and that would be perfect.
I don't know. Maybe add all the Megas forms in just as Gigantamax forms.
I kind of thought they were going to do that.
I'm not sure. I've not done the math. How many Pokemon that have Megas are in Sword and Shield? I was about to bring up Aerodactyl because that was the first one popped in my head, but I'm pretty sure Aerodactyl's not in this deck.
No.
But so like you could have like a Mega, but then like Charizard would then have 3 different Gigantamax forms.
Good for Charizard. It's about time that someone recognized Charizard.
But like, I really like the way that Gigantamax and Dynamax work. So I would not change that. I really like the situations that you can do it. I noticed, Libris, you're not a huge fan of the Gigantamax forms in general.
No.
Would you want to see less of those? I would like to see more of those. Because I think the choice of Pokemon that they chose to give Gigantamax forms to, it's all Kanto Pokemon and Galar Pokemon.
Yeah.
And Garbodor. Which, I like Garbodor. But I'm happy to see more Garbodor.
Garbodor is a good example of why I don't like the Gigantamax designs very much. Because it gets huge and it also gets like toys on it. It's like there's like a wind-up boat or something that's on it and that kind of thing. But those are huge as well. Because when I first saw it, I thought like, oh, that's an actual boat on it. And, considering the size, that would kind of make sense if it was a small boat. But then it's a toy, so...
Is it a toy?
Yeah, it's got a wind-up thing on it.
Of course it's I knew immediately it was a toy.
Yeah. So it's just like... But one, why is there a toy boat on it? I guess because that toy boat was thrown out like into the garbage kind of thing. But also, why is that toy boat like enormous? Because the whole thing is like it's an illusion / time space warp thing. Like Dynamax is just an illusion, but Gigantamax, what changes their form, like there's some weird physics going on there.
Something infinity energy.
Something infinity energy. Absolutely. And just like I don't get what the connection is.
I feel what kind of garbage would you have in the final form of Garbage Mon?
I would have stuck a Mini Cooper in it. It's just that extra dose of Britishness. Just ram a Mini Cooper into this massive
That's good.
Pokemon.
Libris, what about you?
Yeah, I think I liked it when I saw like, oh my god, it has a boat on it, until I realized that it was a wind-up toy. Like it's just such a huge garbage pile that like there's wrecked boats and I know there were other things on it, but like the boat is one that stood out to me. So I liked that, and it just like that really emphasizes how huge it is.
I really like Gigantamax Duraludon because it turns into an actual building in London.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's a
I
big,
agree.
it's big shard boy.
Yeah, that one
It's great.
doesn't. That's one of the ones that doesn't do it for me.
If
We-
you're going to name the thing Gigantamax, it has to. One of them has to turn into a building. It just has to happen. So I what are you going to say, Libris?
I don't know. Maybe I'm just missing something about the concepts of the Gigantamax designs in general, but it's just, to me, they all seem exaggerated in a silly way. It's like, okay, there's this metal dragon that turns into a building rather than a metal dragon.
We had this we had a form of this conversation on Twitter. I think it was us three. I compared it to wrestling. It's like the Gigantamax forms are supposed to be big and silly, as far as I can see. Or like some of them are supposed to be big and silly because they are used in the gyms as a way to build more hype in the audience. The audience loves some Dynamax. They start cheering. They do that perfect wordless chant, which is just so very football fan. So of course they look big and silly, and of course they're a little bit hokey because they're like a wrestling gimmick. They don't have to be serious. Some of them take themselves seriously, some of them take themselves less seriously. They're just there to build hype in the gyms. That's the way I see them anyway.
I don't know.
And
I just find them underwhelming. Whereas there were a lot of like mega evolutions that I thought the designs were really good, even if I didn't like, and I still don't like the concept of mega evolution. There were some mega designs that were really good, and for the most part, I just find the Gigantamax designs pretty underwhelming.
Have you seen Gigantamax Orbeetle?
I saw a glimpse of it in someone's video the other day. I haven't actually.
That's one of my
encountered one.
favorites. Orbeetle is one of my favorites. I think Snorlax. I assume you've seen the Gigantamax Snorlax trailer. What do you think of that one?
I like it. That it's just like it's so big that there's like stuff growing on it. there's a forest on it. There's a berry tree.
It's not just that it's got a forest and a berry tree. It stopped blocking the route and it has become the route.
Yeah,
Fair enough. Yeah.
it's a beautiful design. I just wish it were grass type. That's the only thing that's wrong with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. Like that one. I think the design is neat. Maybe I'm just underwhelmed by the concept of Dynamax in general,
Maybe.
and so that's like coloring my opinion of the Gigantamax forms, because I just like they're all meh to me, except Centiskorch, because I feel like Centiskorch grows in an interesting way. It goes from just being a centipede that's on fire to actually becoming a like dragon centipede.
Well, like Centiskorch isn't just a centipede on fire. Centiskorch is supposed to be a radiator.
A radiator.
Well, it's classified as the radiator Pokemon.
Oh, I didn't pick up on that.
That's why when it attacks, it sort of does that weird zigzaggy thing, so it looks like a bar radiator.
Yeah.
And then like turning a radiator into a dragon. That's still very cool. The way that they managed to do that. I also quite like
that is clever.
Libris, I'm sorry for saying that I was going to disagree with you. That was me, and also I agree with you. So that's an important distinction to make.
Just to finish off, serious topic now.
Serious.
Do you think the series is headed in a good direction?
I trust Game Freak. I think like they know how to run their franchise. A lot of people think they know how to do a Pokemon better than the people that have been doing Pokemon for 20 years, which I feel is a bit of a flawed argument. I think the series is going in a good direction. I think the last two generations have been about flipping the formula on its head in two totally different ways, and therefore it kind of makes it hard to predict what direction it's going in, other than it's going to be different and we're not going to know how or in what ways. So, but I'm always up for more of that, keeping the formula fresh but also familiar. So yes, I think the series is heading in a very good direction.
Wonderful.
Yes for me too. I have so much to say about this that I'm just going to say yes, because
No.
it's a
Say
solid
all
yes.
of it. Say all of it.
Please elaborate. I've spoken way too much.
Spill your brains.
Okay. So, there's in the final scene where Leon is talking to you, the player character, there's kind of a nod to the relationship between our generation of players, the original players, and the new players, and how I think it's our responsibility as older players to allow this new group of players to have their own Pokemon experience. And I think Game Freak is taking us there. They're okay with upsetting us, like with Dexit, if it's for the greater good of the series, if it's for the greater good of making sure that the next generation enjoys the game, they'll do that. And I think Leon's Charizard is a sign of just this older guard, and its Charizard is not as cool anymore when there's Dragapult shooting out little Dreepies.
And Toxtricity.
So yeah,
in general.
Mm-hmm. There's a Kiss Pokemon now. How can you top that? The short answer and long answer is yes. I'm looking forward to, if they keep making these Pokemon games, who knows, it could be a fad. If they keep doing it, then I'm looking forward to buying it.
For me, I do agree that they are definitely going in a good direction. If I have a complaint about it, it's that they're not going there fast enough. I want to see more changes to the formula. Like, yes, every new game that we've had for a few generations now has introduced really interesting new things. But it still all feels like the same game. We still have 8 gyms, and we went away from that a little bit in Alola, where it was a different structure, but when we came back to gyms, it's 8 gyms, even though they acknowledge that 18 of them exist. Why not more gyms? Why not fewer gyms? I don't know. I just want them to see them try more different things. And some of them are going to work, and some of them are not going to work.
Well, I have bad news, Libris. I think there's such a great formula that they have that the greater changes that they make, they don't really have much to. If it's not broke, don't fix it, I guess is what they're probably thinking. That's not what I think. That's not what you think. But when they're sitting in meetings,
yeah, and I absolutely get that, because they have a formula not just for the games but for the entire franchise that is clearly working.
Right.
Ultimately, the purpose of a new game is not so much to be a game of the year. It's to be a good enough game that people will buy it and be interested and get to know the new creatures that they can then sell back to us again in merch.
Delete this.
I don't feel like the if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of. I don't feel like that really applies here, because they've just had a big staff shakeup. Junichi Masuda stepping down, obviously. Amori's taking over from him. We've got James Turner in the art direction. We have a staff shakeup, and I think they are eager to do some new different things. Where I thought you were going with this was, I believe they're going to slow down further with the changes, because even at this glacial pace where things are changing currently, there was still this enormous blowback, and it permeated. It wasn't just like the subreddit got mad. It permeated so much that actual Philip DeFranco reported on Dexit multiple times. Just general news people are reporting on how mad the Pokemon fan base is because of this Dexit thing. So I think they're scared of changing more. I think they're scared of changing quicker. I agree with you. I would love Gen 9 to be a complete shake-up and have like 3 trials and 7 gyms and something completely different instead of an Elite Four. But I think they're scared. Because if all of the publicity is look how mad the fans of this franchise are, then it killed their morale. It killed their morale completely.
In order to make really good games, they need to take those risks, but that's that kind of balance that they need to strike, and that is difficult.
But that's just a video game thing in general. You need to take
yeah.
some risks to continue making an entertaining product. That's why, and I don't want to bring up the same game again, that's why Breath of the Wild was received so well, because of how many chances it took.
And just for the record, I don't think that it's bad to compare Pokemon to Breath of the Wild, because Zelda is also a series that had a very strong formula for a very long time, and they broke away from that, and they took like 5 or 6 years to develop that game, and they delayed that game 2 or 3 times because it wasn't good enough yet. And then when they did release it, did it win Game of the Year? I think it did.
Like, somewhere, a lot of places definitely gave it their Game of the Year. But I feel like the issue is the yearly release cycle that Pokemon's stuck on, so they can't take 5 or 6 years to make a good game.
Although there was an interview in the lead up to Sword and Shield that I had to read recently because I wasn't looking at anything during that time period, so I read a whole bunch of interviews afterwards. But there was an interview where they said that they won't necessarily be releasing a new Pokemon game every year.
That's good to hear. I think we could go maybe 2-3 years with Sword and Shield.
I think so too, and I feel like they could make small additions to Sword and Shield. I don't know if this isn't really the kind of thing that Pokemon has been doing recently, but if they release a mythical Pokemon or some other kind of event Pokemon that adds a little bit of story or gives you access to a new part of the map that didn't exist before, like if they do that every few months, Sword and Shield can have a very, very long lifespan.
But so the reason I say Breath of the Wild, they shouldn't compare the two. Breath of the Wild doesn't have as much baggage. I know that sounds stupid because that series has been around since the 80s, Pokemon since the late 90s. But when you have a Zelda game, what do you need? You need the Link character, you need Zelda, and then a Ganon. Right, so then they're pretty much free to make their own game as if it were a totally new thing. Pokemon has 800 monsters that they need to bring, and it has to have the same battle system. It has to have 8 gyms.
Does it, though? No, I get that. And Zelda, they make most of their money from the games and not from peripheral things like anime, TCG, merchandise, that kind of thing. So Zelda taking risks and failing potentially affects the game. Pokemon taking risks and failing affects the game, the anime, the TCG, the merchandise. So yeah, it's a bigger risk for Pokemon to take risks.
Right.
But for the sake of the games, they need to take more risks. Well, on that note, I think we can end it here. Thank you for listening and watching and whatever you're doing. Well, depending on what platform you're watching this on, you can like, you can subscribe, you can become a follower, you can comment. Let us know what you thought of Sword and Shield and what you agree and disagree with what we said. Well, I hope that Brett and Ethan will both join me in responding to comments. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
If they would like to support Tin Tower Talks in more ways, you can check out my Patreon. The links are in the description. I'm Unreal Libris. I'll see you in the next chapter.